Hey guys, Chris here. So right next to me we have the DS3 Crossback E-Tense, the electric version of the DS3. This car is closely related to the E208 and the E2008 from Peugeot. If you want me to drive one of those cars on the channel, please comment in the comment section down below. And if you're new to the channel, guys, my name is Chris and I do car videos, so please go ahead and click that subscribe button down below and give this video a thumbs up. Over to this car, and in today's video we're going to find out if this car is any good. Is this a luxury offering from the French a proper luxury offering, or should you just skip it and get the cheaper Peugeot version of this car? I want to start this video with something I really like, and that is the interior of this DS3. And if you're used to luxury cars from the Germans, the Swedes, the British, and even the Japanese, this is very, very different. It's very French and very quirky. It has tons of personality, and that's something I really do like about French cars. And if you saw my first range video on this car, my first range test, I talked about me owning a Peugeot 207 as my first car. So I am a bit of a PSA group fanboy, I must be honest there, and this doesn't disappoint me. This is exactly what I want from a DS3, a French luxury car in this segment. It has beautiful materials here on top of the dashboard, and then you have this recurring diamond theme, which you have in the DS logo. You have it here on the steering wheels, on the steering wheel in the buttons. You also have it here on the knurling on the center console in the metal. You have this diamond patterns here on the doors. You can even get this car with a light colored leather interior where you have the diamond patterns on the dashboard. That's a car I really want to test in the future because I'm a huge fan of light interiors. I'm not a huge fan of dark interiors and black interiors, but this beige, this gold color does break up the interior so it doesn't get too dark or austere in here. But yeah, high quality materials on top of the dashboard. The switchgear is very nice, and lower cabin materials aren't the best, but in this type of class of vehicle you can't expect that. Even in an Audi A1 you have hard touch plastics on top of the dashboard, so I'm not complaining at all. The only thing I'm going to complain about is that the dead pedal is a bit too close to me, so I feel like my left leg isn't in a comfortable position when I'm using it. But unlike the Polestar 2 I drove a few months ago, you have a huge cabin. I mean, this feels very spacious, so you just move your legs a bit about. It's not hard to get comfortable. So even though the dead pedal isn't optimal, I have no problems getting comfortable. I haven't had no lower back pains in the past week I've had this car, as I did with that Polestar 2. You have this wireless charging port here, which is super practical. I really do like that. And you know, this low center console, the dashboard, which is just pulled a bit away, just makes this front cabin feel more spacious than this type of vehicle usually does, this type of class usually does. And the only thing I also don't like is this infotainment system, but more on that later in this video. But overall, this is a very pleasant and a special place to sit, this cabin of this DS3. Being an electric vehicle, this is already enormously refined out of the box. These EVs with their drivetrains are super quiet and very, very refined in their operation. Power delivery is super smooth, and yeah, the whole EV thing is just very luxurious when put into a normal car. But what impresses me most with this is the level of sound insulation. So doing 50 kilometers an hour here, yeah, I don't have to raise my voice at all. But what really impresses me is just how quiet this car is at motorway speeds. Remember, I jumped out of the EQC after a week with that car and then into this car, and I wasn't disappointed at all. This thing is very, very impressive. And then it's the way it drives. So it's quite softly sprung. You have, you know, a lot of suspension travel because of the raised ride height, and that just gives you a confidence when driving this car. And this is something I didn't mention with that EQC that a lot of you guys have commented, and that is the 11 centimeters ride height. I think this has 16 centimeters ride height, so more than that EQC. So this is more SUV than that EQC. But on normal roads, this is super comfortable, but it is a bit hardly sprung, so you still have that body control you expect from a class of vehicle this size. Another area where I am a huge fan of this car is in the styling department. I just love the exterior styling of this car, and I know it won't be to everybody's taste. It is a bit quirky up front with those, you know, bubbly headlights and, you know, that DS grill, that huge grill, but I think it just works somehow. It looks chic. It looks, you know, it looks quirky, but it does look premium at the same time. And then you have, you know, the short length of this car with that tall ride height. It just gives it a cool look. And then also the rear windows with that kink from the original DS3. I think it just works. It just looks very different and very cool. And then you have the rear end where this car is almost German-like, but it's super elegant. I just love the rear end. Overall, I just love the shape of this car. I'm not a huge fan of this dark exterior color and these black wheels. I've seen this car like in a light silver color with some diamond cut wheels, and this with the white interior, it just looks spectacular. So maybe I'll test that car in the future, but I am a huge fan. I mean, a huge fan of how this car looks with the right spec. By now, you guys might have figured out that I actually like this car a lot. I'm a huge fan of this car, but there are a few things that are, to be quite honest, terrible about this car. And let's do the positives first. I'm going to turn around the camera. So one thing I do think is quite awesome about this car is this head-up display. Though being, you know, the cheaper type of head-up display where you have this glass panel that pops out from the dashboard, I think it works flawless. It sits low on the windscreen, so it's not obstructing any views, and it's super clear. You know, it's just white on the background, white writing on the black background. It just works super simple. And what it does nicely, it complements the digital gauge cluster. And in my opinion, a good head-up display isn't redundant. You don't get all the information up here and then you get all the information down here. Then I just prefer to use the digital gauge cluster because, you know, the ones that project onto the windscreen just aren't as clear or as high resolution as the digital gauge clusters. But what this does is that it complements it very nice. So you have nice huge readouts up here, and then you have different information down here which is relevant. So here we have consumption, we have range, and we have other information that is relevant. But this screen down here is not impressive at all. It's quite bad actually. So scrolling in between different modes, it's just super laggy. Okay, come on. I don't know if it's the animations that you know, are made to be laggy, but you can see the frame rate is just not good at all. So the resolution is fine, the colors are fine, the black levels are fine, but I'm not impressed. But the thing that might be a deal breaker for a lot of people that I find quite frustrating is the center console here. So first off, we have this 10.3-inch digital gauge cluster up, not digital, we have this 10.3-inch infotainment screen up here. So 10.3 inches is quite a nice size, but it's so wide and so narrow that the actual real estate isn't large. So you have these touch buttons here. So you have your menu buttons down here. So you have your media, you have your navigation, and you have settings. And these are touch and they aren't reliable. I mean, sometimes like the heat seaters there, you just have to press them. You have to hit them in a specific way, and yeah, they aren't the most reliable. I just find them quite frustrating at times. And then you have the navigation system here, which is terrible. I mean, it's terrible. It's slow. And let's go ahead and do slow. That wasn't too bad. That wasn't too bad, but I actually preempted this. I actually wrote this in earlier. Let's try something else. And look at all the buttons are so small. So you're supposed to do this while driving, Bergen. Let's go Bergen. Okay, come on. Eventually it will find Bergen. It's only the second largest city in Norway. Okay, and then you have to press OK. That's not intuitive at all. Yes. Today? Yeah, so you guys get the idea. While that is trying to figure out the route to Bergen, why have they spent so much real estate on the cabin temperature on the left side and on the right side, giving us a smallish navigation screen? I just don't understand that. And then also here with all this real estate, you still have to press it, and then you have to move your finger over there, and then when you're done you have to go back. I mean, why don't you just have a plus and a minus here? Press and then press over here. My God, it's just, I don't know, they haven't made it simple at all. And then you have, you know, these touch buttons down here which are just not intuitive. I mean, this is the car settings, right? Okay, so I think the menus here are just quite annoying and not easy to navigate through. But thankfully you do have Apple CarPlay, which just solves almost everything. You can just navigate very simply with Google Maps there, and then it just works flawlessly. So that is the saving grace of this this center stack here. But and also one more thing, yeah, so you have volume touch buttons. Okay, most cars, a lot of cars have buttons, but they also, in some cars, do have a knob down here somewhere. This doesn't, but you thought it maybe thinking that, okay, this is your volume, but no, that just, you know, changes the info, the screens on your digital gauge cluster. These are the volume buttons. I just wish that these were switched, that this was your volume rocker wheel, and these were the buttons to toggle in between the different modes. Okay, so we are at the end of the video. Yeah, so the DS3 is a bit like Pepsi Max Lime, where every other hatchback on the market today is like ordinary Pepsi Max or Coca-Cola Zero or Fanta. This is a bit different. It's a bit quirky, and at first I was very skeptical to Pepsi Max Lime, but after testing it for a few times, it really has grown on me, and it is different. You know, you get tired and bored by the same flavor day in, day out, week in, week out. And this is something new, something refreshing. It might not be perfect. You might not always want it or like it, but like this DS3 Crossback E-Tense, it does have some things that I really don't like. As I said, the infotainment system, but there are workarounds. But everything else I am a huge fan of. I mean, it's not the biggest car, it's not the most practical car. If you want a more practical EV, get the E2008. If you want a smaller, cheaper EV, get the E208. This just sits in a sweet spot in my opinion. And it is a very, very cool car indeed. So with a 320 kilometer WLTP range, it's also like the 2008, where it doesn't have as good range as the E208, but there isn't much in it, guys. So yeah, that is my thoughts. That is my review on this, the DS3 Crossback E-Tense. So guys, if you enjoyed today's video, please be sure to drop a like down below. And for more car content, as always guys, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.